My daughter-in-law just destroyed 6 months of my life in 30 seconds. I'm a cancer survivor. Finished my final chemo treatment 3 weeks ago. Spent those 6 months crafting a family ring during treatments. Trembling hands, magnifying glass, pure determination. White gold band with 4 birthstones for future grandchildren I might never meet. Christmas morning, 15 family members watching, I handed Patricia my gift. She examined it like roadkill. Then came the words that changed everything. This infected amateur work belongs in a dumpster, Samuel. Maybe focus on not dying before making jewelry. Dead silence. My son David went pale. My sister Martha gasped, but I stayed ice cold. Set down my coffee, reached for my phone. Because Patricia had no idea. I'd been anonymously funding her medical school for 4 years. $280,000. Time to collect. Let me paint you the full picture of how cruel this really was. March 15th, 2024. That's when Dr. Rebecca Thompson at Swedish Medical Center told me I had stage 3 lymphoma. 68% survival rate, she said. 18 months of treatment ahead. I'm 59 years old. Lost my wife Margaret 3 years ago to the same disease. Suddenly I'm staring down the same path. But here's what kept me going during those brutal chemo sessions. Creating something lasting. A family legacy. That ring wasn't just jewelry. It was my promise that love survives, even when we don't. Every Tuesday and Friday for 6 months, I'd drag myself to treatment. Port in my chest. Poison pumping through my veins. Then I'd come home and work on that ring for hours. Had to modify all my jewelry tools. Hands shake when you're on chemo. Did you know that? Bought a special magnifying lamp for $400. Weighted handle files so I could grip them. Some days I could only work 15 minutes before the tremors got too bad. The birthstones cost me $1,360 total. Ruby, for July. That's when David was born. Emerald for May, Patricia's birthday, though she never appreciated the gesture. Sapphire for September. Diamond for December. Each stone representing a grandchild I prayed I'd live to see. The engraving nearly broke me. Had to etch the inside band with our family motto, Love Endures. Took me 3 weeks just to get those 8 letters right. My jeweler buddy Frank said it was museum-quality work. Christmas Eve, I wrapped that ring in a custom box I'd made from walnut wood. Same wood from the tree Margaret and I planted when David was born. Even made the little satin cushion inside. Christmas morning arrives. Patricia shows up in her new BMW, the one David bought her with his promotion money. She's wearing a $1,500 Tiffany necklace, designer everything. Hair done at that fancy salon downtown. I'm sitting there in my old cardigan with the burn holes from radiation treatments. Medical bracelet still on my wrist, the one that says lymphoma patient, chemotherapy. Family starts opening gifts. Patricia gets David a Rolex, expensive wine for my sister Martha, gift cards for everyone else. Cold, calculated, no thought behind any of it. Then comes my turn to give gifts. I hand Patricia the walnut box. My hands are still shaking a little. They probably always will. I made this for you, I said quietly. For our family's future. She takes the box, like it might contaminate her manicure. Opens it slowly. The ring catches the Christmas tree lights, all 4 stones sparkling like tiny stars. For maybe 3 seconds, I thought I saw something soften in her face. Maybe appreciation. Maybe understanding of what this meant. I was wrong. She held it up between 2 fingers like it was a dead mouse. Really, Samuel? This is what you've been working on? It looks like something from a gas station jewelry counter. My heart sank, but I tried to explain. Patricia, I spent 6 months. She cut me off with a laugh. Not a gentle laugh. A mean one. 6 months? On this? Oh, honey, you could have just gone to Kay Jewelers and saved yourself the embarrassment. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. David shifted uncomfortably. Martha's Christmas smile vanished. But Patricia wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting started. She turned to address the whole room, holding my ring up like evidence in a trial. Everyone, look at this. Samuel made me a craft project. Isn't that sweet? The way she said sweet, like the word tasted rotten in her mouth. My nephew Jake, David's cousin, tried to diffuse things. Actually, Patricia, that looks really well made. The stones are... Jake, please, I know quality when I see it. This amateur work belongs in a church craft fair, not on someone's finger. And that's when she crossed the line that you don't cross with a cancer patient. She looked directly at me, this dying old man who'd poured his heart into her gift and delivered the blow that changed everything. Samuel, maybe you should focus on not dying before you take up new hobbies. This infected-looking amateur work is exactly why Margaret probably died miserable. She had to watch you fail at everything too. The silence that followed could have shattered glass. My sister Martha went white as paper. David's face turned 3 shades of red. Even Patricia's own mother, visiting from Portland, looked mortified. But me? I felt something I hadn't felt in months of treatment. Clarity. Pure, cold clarity. Patricia had just made the biggest mistake of her entitled little life. Because what she didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that I wasn't just some dying old man making amateur jewelry. I was the Miller Foundation, the anonymous benefactor who'd been paying every single penny of her medical school tuition for the past 4 years. And she was about to find out what happens when you bite the hand that literally feeds you. You think that was bad? Patricia was just warming up. See, when someone shows you their true character, believe them the first time. But Patricia wanted to make absolutely sure everyone in that room understood exactly who she was. After her comment about Margaret dying miserable, the room stayed frozen. 15 people holding their breath, waiting to see what happened next. David finally found his voice. Patricia, that was completely out of line. Dad spent months. David, stop. Patricia held up her hand like she was directing traffic. Your father needs to hear this. We all need to stop enabling his delusions. Delusions. That's what she called 6 months of fighting cancer while creating something beautiful. She stood up from the couch, still holding my ring between 2 fingers like contaminated waste. Started pacing around the living room like she was giving a lecture. Samuel, I'm going to be a doctor. Do you understand what that means? I deal with reality. Facts. Evidence-based medicine. She gestured at my ring with disgust. This isn't reality. This is a sick man's fantasy project. Look at yourself. You can barely hold a coffee cup steady, but somehow you think you can make jewelry? My medical bracelet caught the light as I reached for my water glass. The tremor in my hands was slight, but visible. Patricia noticed. See? That's what I'm talking about. Those shaking hands probably couldn't even thread a needle properly. How am I supposed to wear something made by someone who can't control their own motor functions? Martha couldn't stay quiet anymore. Patricia, he has cancer. Those are side effects from... Exactly my point! Patricia's voice got louder, more animated. She was enjoying this. He's dying. His brain probably isn't even working right anymore. Chemo fog, they call it. And instead of accepting reality and spending his remaining time doing something meaningful, he's playing arts and crafts. She walked over to the mantel where Margaret's picture sat. My wife's gentle smile looking down at this nightmare. You know what's really sad? Margaret was probably relieved when the cancer finally took her. At least she didn't have to watch Samuel embarrass the family anymore with his amateur hour projects. That did it. David shot up from his chair. That's enough. You don't get to talk about my mother like... Your mother was married to a failure, David. Look around this house. Look at your father, 60 years old, and what does he have to show for it? A mortgage he'll never pay off, and jewelry that looks like it came from a gumball machine. She turned back to me, eyes cold as January. Samuel, you're dying. We all know it. The statistics for your type of cancer at your age aren't good. Instead of wasting everyone's time with these pathetic attempts at relevance, why don't you do something useful? Like figure out how to not be a financial burden on David when the medical bills get worse. Financial burden. If she only knew. Patricia wasn't finished destroying me yet. She walked back to where I sat and crouched down, getting eye level with me. Lowered her voice to a fake sympathetic whisper that everyone could hear. Honey, I know this is hard. I know you're scared, but making ugly jewelry isn't going to make you live longer. It's not going to bring Margaret back. It's just embarrassing. For all of us. She stood up, brushed imaginary dust off her designer dress. I mean, what's next? Are you going to start painting, pottery class, maybe a macrame? She laughed at her own joke. At some point, we have to accept that not everyone is artistic. Some people are just basic. Basic. 47 years as a master jeweler, and she called me basic. But she saved the worst for last. Patricia walked over to the Christmas tree and held my ring up to the light, making a big show of examining it. You know what this reminds me of? Those sad crafts they make in nursing homes. When people with dementia try to stay busy, it's the same quality level, the same desperation. She looked around the room, making sure she had everyone's attention. I actually feel bad throwing this away. It seems cruel to trash someone's final attempt at relevance, but I can't exactly wear it either. People would think David married beneath his station. Beneath his station. Coming from a woman whose entire education I'd been secretly funding. Martha stood up, shaking with rage. Patricia, you are the cruelest person I have ever. Martha, please. We're all thinking it. I'm just honest enough to say it out loud. Samuel is dying, and instead of facing that reality with dignity, he's clinging to these little projects like they matter. She walked back to me one final time. Samuel, I'm going to be a doctor. I save lives. That's meaningful work. This, she dangled my ring in front of my face. This is what people do when they've given up on actually mattering. The room was dead silent, except for the Christmas music playing softly in the background. Silent night. How perfectly appropriate. Patricia dropped my ring into her purse like it was evidence she needed to dispose of later. I'll find somewhere appropriate to donate this. Maybe a children's hospital. They appreciate handmade things there. That's when I reached for my phone, because Patricia had just sealed her fate with those words about saving lives and meaningful work. Time to show her what meaningful really looked like. My phone felt steady in my hands for the first time in months. Funny how clarity works. 6 months of chemo treatments, hands shaking from medication, barely able to hold my coffee cup some mornings. But right now, rock solid. I opened my banking app while Patricia continued her victory lap around the living room. She was telling David's cousin about managing expectations with elderly relatives and the importance of honest feedback. The Miller Foundation account loaded on my screen. Current balance, $283,412.67. 4 years of deposits, $70,000 per year, paid quarterly. Every tuition bill, every fee, every textbook allowance for Patricia's medical school education at University of Washington. She had no idea. Let me tell you how this started. December 2020. David called me, voice shaking. Patricia had gotten accepted to medical school but couldn't afford it. Student loans would bury them for decades. They'd have to postpone the wedding, maybe kids, everything. Dad, I don't know what to do. She's brilliant, but we just can't swing the numbers. That night I sat in Margaret's old chair, the one where she used to grade her students' papers, and made a decision. I'd incorporate the Miller Foundation, anonymous educational charity, just me, a lawyer, and a bank account. First payment went out January 15th, 2021. $70,000 to cover Patricia's full first-year tuition, books, and living expenses. No loans required. Patricia thought she'd won some mysterious scholarship, called it a merit-based anonymous donor program for exceptional students. She'd actually put it on her social media, bragging about being chosen by some wealthy benefactor who recognized her potential. The irony was delicious even then. Year 2, same thing, $70,000 paid in quarterly installments. Patricia's posts got more elaborate. She was blessed to have this angel investor supporting her future in medicine. Year 3 brought complications. Patricia started researching her mysterious benefactor, wanted to thank them personally, even hired a private investigator to track down the Miller Foundation's source. I had my lawyer create a shell corporation in Delaware, buried the paper trail under 3 layers of legal entities. Patricia's investigator hit dead ends every time. Meanwhile, she kept spending. Designer study materials, premium MCAT prep courses, that $1,500 stethoscope she just had to have, all covered by her scholarship. This year, year 4, I'd already paid the fall semester. $70,000 transferred in August. Spring tuition was due January 15th. Another $35,000 ready to go. Patricia had 8 months left until graduation. 8 months until she'd become Dr. Patricia Wilson and start her residency at Seattle Children's Hospital. 8 months of debt-free medical education, all thanks to the dying old man she'd just destroyed in front of his entire family. I scrolled through the foundation's payment history, every transaction documented, every receipt saved. 4 years of meticulous record-keeping. David noticed me on my phone. Dad, you okay? You look... I'm fine, son. But I wasn't fine. I was done. Done being disrespected. Done being invisible. Done funding the education of someone who thought my life's work was infected amateur garbage. Patricia had called my ring worthless, said I should focus on dying instead of creating, mocked Margaret's memory, called me a financial burden. Time to show her what a real financial burden looked like. I pulled up my contacts, found Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, Director of Financial Aid at University of Washington School of Medicine. We'd spoken several times over the years about the Miller Foundation's generous ongoing support for exceptional students. My finger hovered over her number. Once I made this call, there was no going back. Patricia would graduate $280,000 in debt. Her residency salary wouldn't even cover the interest payments. She'd be financially underwater for decades. But then I remembered her words. This infected-looking amateur work is exactly why Margaret probably died miserable. My wife, my beautiful, brilliant wife who'd supported every dream I'd ever had, who'd held my hand through every cancer treatment until her own illness took her. Patricia had crossed a line you don't come back from. I scrolled to another contact. James Morrison, director of the American Cancer Society's Research Division. We'd met at several fundraising events over the years. 2 phone calls. That's all it would take. 1 to cancel Patricia's funding, 1 to redirect every penny to cancer research. Patricia was still talking to the room about realistic expectations and dignity in decline when I stood up from my chair. "Excuse me, everyone. I need to make a quick phone call." My voice was calm, steady, almost cheerful, because Patricia was about to learn the most expensive lesson of her life. David followed me into the kitchen while Patricia continued holding court in the living room. "Dad, I'm so sorry." I don't know what's gotten into her lately. The stress from finals, maybe. "Son." I put my hand on his shoulder. "How much do you know about Patricia's financial situation at school?" David looked confused. "What do you mean?" "She got that amazing scholarship. The Miller Foundation thing. Covers everything. Tuition, books, living expenses. She's been incredibly lucky. Lucky. Right. David, sit down for a minute." We sat at Margaret's old kitchen table, the one where she used to help David with homework 20 years ago, where we'd planned our retirement dreams before cancer changed everything. "I need to tell you something about that scholarship." My sister Martha appeared in the doorway, face still red from Patricia's performance. "Samuel, I've known you for 59 years, and I've never seen you this calm when you're angry. What are you planning?" "Smart woman, my sister. Retired high school principal. She could read people like open books." "Martha, remember when you helped me set up that charity 4 years ago? The paperwork for the Miller Foundation?" Her eyes went wide. "Oh my God! Samuel, you didn't—" David looked between us. "Didn't what?" "What foundation?" I pulled up my banking app again, showed David the account balance. $283,000. "Son, there is no mysterious benefactor. There is no merit scholarship. For 4 years, I've been paying Patricia's entire medical school education, every penny." David stared at the screen like it was written in a foreign language. That's impossible. She researched it, hired an investigator. The Miller Foundation is a real organization with a Delaware shell corporation and a lawyer who bills me $500 every time someone asks questions. "Yes." Martha sat down hard in the third chair. "Samuel, are you telling me that horrible woman in there just spent 10 minutes destroying the man who's been paying her way through medical school?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." The kitchen went quiet, except for the coffee maker gurgling and Patricia's voice drifting in from the living room. She was showing someone pictures on her phone, probably her latest social media posts about her blessed education. David's face cycled through confusion, realization, and finally rage. 4 years, Dad? 4 years of how much money? $280,000 so far. Spring tuition is due next month. Another $35,000. Jesus Christ. David ran his hands through his hair. "Dad, why didn't you tell me? I could have helped. We could have, because I wanted to do it. For you, for your future family. I thought Patricia would be part of our family for life. I wanted to give her the education she deserved." Martha leaned forward. "And now?" I looked toward the living room where Patricia was still talking. Still convinced she was the smartest person in the room. Still wearing that designer dress, bought with money saved from her scholarship. Now I think Patricia needs to learn about earning things instead of just receiving them. David was quiet for a long moment. Then, Dad, she just said Mom died miserable. She called your work infected garbage in front of the whole family. I heard. And you've been paying for her to become a doctor. Someone who's supposed to help people. Ironic, isn't it? Martha stood up and walked to the kitchen window. Could see Patricia through the doorway, gesturing dramatically with her wine glass. Samuel, what are you going to do? I showed them my contacts list. Dr. Hayes at the university, James Morrison at the Cancer Society. I'm going to make 2 phone calls, one to cancel her funding, one to donate every penny to cancer research. David was quiet for another moment. Then he nodded slowly. Do it. Martha smiled for the first time all morning. Your father would be proud of you, Samuel. Sometimes people need to face consequences. Patricia's laughter echoed from the living room. She was telling someone about her residency plans, her bright future, all the lives she was going to save. Time to give her a reality check. We were walking back to the living room when Patricia decided she wasn't done with me yet. She'd moved to the mantel, right next to Margaret's picture, holding court with my nephew Jake and his wife Sarah. Wine glass in one hand, my ring still dangling from her other hand like a dead fish. The thing about elderly people, she was saying, loud enough for me to hear, is that they lose perspective. They think their little hobbies matter because they're desperately clinging to relevance. Jake looked uncomfortable. Patricia, maybe we should... No, this is important. As his future daughter-in-law who's going to be a doctor, I have a responsibility to help Samuel face reality. Future daughter-in-law. That was rich. She turned to face me as I entered the room. Samuel. Perfect timing. I was just explaining to everyone why your little craft project phase isn't healthy. The room went tense again. David stepped closer to me, but I held up my hand. Let her talk. See, in medical school, we learn about something called displacement activity. It's when people facing trauma or terminal illness fixate on meaningless tasks to avoid confronting their situation. Patricia took a sip of wine, clearly enjoying her impromptu psychology lecture. Making jewelry, painting, scrapbooking, these are classic examples. The patient thinks they're creating something important, but really they're just hiding from death. My sister Martha made a noise like she was choking. Patricia ignored her. Samuel, your cancer isn't going away because you made a ring. Margaret isn't coming back because you carved her name in metal. You're still dying, and these craft projects are just making it harder for your family to accept that reality. She walked over to where I stood, looked me right in the eyes. I know this sounds harsh, but someone needs to say it. You're embarrassing, David. You're embarrassing yourself. And honestly, you're dishonoring Margaret's memory by pretending she would have wanted you to waste your final months playing arts and crafts. The wine was making her bolder, meaner. Do you know what Margaret would actually want? For you to face your diagnosis with dignity, to stop being a burden, to let David move on with his life instead of guilt-tripping him with these pathetic attention-seeking projects. Jake tried to interrupt. Patricia, I think you've said enough. Have I? Because I don't think Samuel understands how his behavior affects other people. David comes home stressed every day, worried about his father's delusions, worried about the medical bills that are coming, worried about inheriting this mortgage when Samuel dies. She gestured around the living room with her wine glass. This house needs work. The roof leaks. The heating system is ancient. But instead of addressing real problems, Samuel spends his time making amateur jewelry that belongs in a garage sale. David's face was getting redder by the second. Patricia, stop. Just stop. But she was on a roll now. The wine, the audience, the power trip, it was all going to her head. And the worst part? He actually thought I'd wear this thing. She held up my ring again. In public. Where my classmates might see it. Where my professors might notice it. She laughed that cruel laugh again. Can you imagine? Oh, Patricia, what a lovely ring. Thanks, my dying father-in-law made it in his garage between chemo treatments. That would really establish my credibility in medical school, wouldn't it? That was it. The final straw. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Patricia noticed, but kept talking. Samuel, putting that phone away won't make this conversation go away. We need to discuss your end-of-life planning, your financial situation, your... Hello, Dr. Hayes. This is Samuel Miller from the Miller Foundation. Patricia stopped mid-sentence. I need to discuss Patricia Wilson's funding immediately. Patricia's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Dr. Hayes, yes, I'm calling about our ongoing educational support for Patricia Wilson at the University of Washington School of Medicine. The room went dead silent. You could hear the Christmas tree lights humming. Patricia's face shifted from confusion to concern to something approaching panic. Who is that? She whispered to David. What is he talking about? I put the phone on speaker so everyone could hear. Mr. Miller, wonderful to hear from you. Dr. Hayes' voice filled the room. Patricia is one of our most exceptional students. The Miller Foundation's generosity has been absolutely life-changing for her education. Patricia went white as fresh snow. I'm actually calling to discuss some changes to our funding arrangement, I said calmly. Of course. What kind of changes are we looking at? Patricia started shaking her head slowly, like she could make this conversation disappear through willpower. Wait, she whispered. Wait. Miller Foundation? Miller? Your name is Miller. That can't be... I looked directly at her. Hello, Patricia. I'm your anonymous benefactor. The wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattered on Margaret's hardwood floor, red wine splashing across her designer shoes. That's impossible. I researched the Miller Foundation. It's a Delaware corporation. There's a board of directors. There's me. Just me. And a very expensive lawyer who's been covering our tracks for 4 years. I held up my phone so she could see the banking app. The Miller Foundation account. $283,412.67. Every tuition payment, Patricia. Every book allowance. Every living expense stipend. All from the dying old man whose work you just called infected garbage. Dr. Hayes' voice came through the speaker. Mr. Miller, is everything all right? You sound... Dr. Hayes, I need you to pull up Patricia Wilson's complete financial record. Can you tell me the total amount the Miller Foundation has contributed to her education? Silence on the other end. Computer keys clicking. Let me see here. Year 1, 70,000. Year 2, 70,000. Year 3, 70,000. Fall semester this year, 35,000. Total contribution, $245,000 with spring semester funding of 35,000 pending. Patricia sank onto the couch like her legs had given out. 280,000 total, I said. Every penny from my retirement savings, my inheritance from Margaret, money I earned over 47 years as a master jeweler. The room was so quiet you could hear Patricia's breathing getting shallow and fast. I incorporated the Miller Foundation 3 weeks after David called me, crying because his brilliant fiancée couldn't afford medical school. I thought I was investing in our family's future. Patricia's voice came out as barely a whisper. Samuel, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. Because you never asked, never wondered, never thought to question your good fortune. You just assumed you deserved it. Martha was staring at Patricia like she was watching a car accident in slow motion. David found his voice. Dad, you spent your retirement money on her education? All of it. Margaret and I saved for 30 years so we could travel when we retired. See Europe. Take that Alaskan cruise she always wanted. Instead, I gave it to the woman who just told me my dying wife would be ashamed of my work. Patricia tried to stand up but swayed, had to grab the couch arm for support. Samuel, please, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I had known... What? You would have been nicer to me? You would have pretended to respect the man paying your bills? She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I was stressed about finals. The wine made me say things I didn't mean. Please, you have to understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. You showed me exactly who you are, Patricia. When you thought I was just some powerless old man, you felt free to destroy me in front of my family. I looked at the phone screen. Dr. Hayes was still on the line, probably listening to this whole disaster. Dr. Hayes, I need to inform you that the Miller Foundation will be terminating Patricia Wilson's funding immediately. Patricia's sob was audible across the room. Additionally, I'm redirecting the Foundation's remaining assets to the American Cancer Society for research purposes. Samuel! No! Patricia lunged toward me. Please, you can't. I graduate in 8 months. 8 months. I looked at this woman who'd called my life's work infected, who'd mocked my dying wife's memory. You're absolutely right, Patricia. 8 months until graduation. $280,000 in student loan debt waiting for you. Patricia was on her knees now, literally begging. Samuel, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was terrible, but please don't do this. I kept the phone on speaker and dialed my second number, James Morrison at the American Cancer Society. James, it's Samuel Miller. I have a donation I'd like to make today. Patricia crawled closer, reaching for my phone. Please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll wear the ring every day. Hello, Samuel. James's voice filled the room. Always a pleasure. What kind of donation are we discussing? $283,412.67. I'd like it designated for lymphoma research, specifically. Patricia's wail could probably be heard 3 houses down. That's incredibly generous, Samuel. Are you sure about the amount? Completely sure. It's money that was going towards someone's medical education, but I've decided cancer research is a better investment. I opened my banking app while everyone watched. The Miller Foundation account glowed on my screen. Patricia, you wanted to know what meaningful work looks like? This is it. Every dollar I spent on your education is going to help save lives. Real lives. Not the fantasy lives you talk about saving while you mock dying patients. My finger hovered over the transfer button. Patricia was hyperventilating. My loans, the interest rates, I'll never be able to pay them back on a resident's salary. You're destroying my entire future. I'm returning your future to you, the one you would have had if you'd never met my family. Congratulations on your independence. I pressed transfer. The screen showed transfer successful. $283,412.67 sent to American Cancer Society. Account number 4471892. Done. Patricia collapsed completely, sobbing into Margaret's Persian rug. James Morrison's voice came through the speaker. Samuel, this is extraordinary. This funding could help advance several promising treatment protocols. You're literally helping save lives. That's the idea, James. We'll make sure this donation's used exactly as you specified. Lymphoma research. Lives like yours, Samuel. I hung up and looked down at Patricia, who was still crumpled on the floor. Get up. She looked up at me with mascara-streaked cheeks. I said, get up. She struggled to her feet, shaking. Patricia, you asked me to focus on not dying instead of making jewelry. Well, congratulations. I just focused on not dying by funding the research that might save the next person like me. David stepped forward. Dad, that was your entire retirement. That was my choice to make, son, just like it was my choice to spend it on someone who I thought would be part of our family. I turned back to Patricia. You called my work infected amateur garbage. You said Margaret died miserable watching me fail at everything. You called me a burden on David. Each word hit her like a physical blow. So let me give you a reality check, Dr. Wilson. You're about to graduate with $280,000 in debt. At current interest rates, that's roughly $3,000 a month in loan payments. Your residency salary will be about $4,000 a month. The math was sinking in. Her face went from red to green. That leaves you $1,000 a month to live on for the next 25 years, unless you find a very generous benefactor. I picked up her purse from the coffee table and pulled out my ring, the one she'd called infected garbage. This ring you threw away? I had it appraised last week. $2,800. That's about 1 month of your loan payments. I walked to the mantel and placed the ring next to Margaret's picture. It stays here, with family who appreciates what love and sacrifice actually look like. Patricia tried one more time. Samuel, please. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but ruining my life won't... I didn't ruin your life, Patricia. I just stopped paying for it. My phone buzzed with a confirmation text from the Cancer Society. Your donation's confirmed and will immediately begin funding Dr. Sarah Chen's breakthrough lymphoma treatment research. Thank you for helping save lives. I showed Patricia the text. There. Your money is already saving lives. Real ones. Part 9. Public Consequences. 900 words. Target. The aftermath came swift and brutal. Patricia's phone started buzzing within minutes. Text messages, emails, voice calls. She answered the first one with shaking hands. Hello? Yes, this is Patricia Wilson. What? How did you... Yes, I understand. She hung up and looked at me with pure terror. That was the University Financial Aid Office. They want to see me first thing Monday morning to discuss my loan restructuring. Her phone buzzed again, then again. Patricia, David said quietly, maybe you should go home and... Home? She laughed bitterly. To the apartment I can afford because I thought I had a full scholarship? David, I have $800 in my checking account. 800. That's supposed to last me until my residency starts. The phone kept buzzing. She answered another call. Dr. Peterson? From Student Services? Yes, I received the email. Monday at 9 a.m., I understand. When she hung up, her hands were visibly trembling. They're reviewing my financial aid status. Something about significant changes in donor funding requiring immediate reassessment of student financial obligations. Martha was watching this unfold with the fascination of someone witnessing natural selection in real time. Patricia, how exactly did you think this was going to work? You destroy the man who's been paying your bills, and then what? He just keeps writing checks? Another call. This time, Patricia just stared at the screen. It's my study group. Someone posted about this on social media. She showed us her phone. A Facebook post from Jake's wife, Sarah. When you find out your daughter-in-law has been verbally abusing the man who's been anonymously paying for her medical school. Some people have no shame. 43 comments already, growing by the minute. Sarah posted this 20 minutes ago, Patricia whispered. How many people do you think have seen it? Her phone rang again. This time she recognized the number. It's my mother. She answered with a defeated voice. Hi, Mom. Yes, I saw Sarah's post. No, it's not exaggerated. Yes, he really was paying my tuition. No, I had no idea. The conversation continued for 5 minutes. We could hear her mother's voice getting louder through the speaker. Words like ungrateful and disgusting and how could you? When Patricia hung up, she looked broken. My mother wants me to drive home to Portland tonight. She's never been so ashamed of me in her life. David finally spoke. Patricia, I think you should pack a bag. What? I think you should go stay with your mother for a while. Figure out your next steps. Patricia stared at him. David, you're my husband. We're supposed to work through problems together. Work through problems? Yes. But what you did today wasn't a problem. It was character assassination of my father. On Christmas. In front of our entire family. Her phone buzzed with more social media notifications. It's getting shared, she said numbly. Sarah's post is getting shared. She scrolled through the comments. Read a few out loud. This is why entitled people never appreciate what they have. Hope she enjoys paying back that $250,000 in student loans. Old man's revenge level. Nuclear. One comment made her face go white. Patricia Wilson, University of Washington medical student. Screenshot for posterity. They're using my full name, my school. This is going to follow me forever. Another call. This time she just let it ring. That's Dr. Matthews from my residency program, the pediatrics director at Seattle Children's Hospital. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. He's calling back. She looked at David with desperate eyes. What if this affects my residency? What if they rescind my position? David's voice was cold. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to humiliate a cancer patient in front of his family. Martha leaned forward. Patricia, let me explain something to you about consequences. You spent 10 minutes showing everyone in this room exactly who you are when you think nobody important is watching. Now, everyone important is watching. Patricia's phone rang again, a number she didn't recognize. Hello? Who is this? A reporter? From the Seattle Times? How did you get my number? She hung up immediately, but the phone started ringing again. Someone gave my story to the news. David was already moving toward the bedroom. I'll get you a suitcase. David, wait. No. Patricia, you called my mother's memory worthless. You mocked my father's cancer. You destroyed a man who spent his life savings on your education. In my house. On Christmas. He stopped at the hallway entrance. I need time to think about whether I want to be married to someone capable of that level of cruelty. Patricia looked around the room. 15 family members who'd witnessed her meltdown, all of them staring at her with varying degrees of disgust and disbelief. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She read it and went pale. It's from my classmate, Michelle. The story is on Reddit now. Something called Pro-Revenge. 12,000 upvotes already. She looked at me with the expression of someone watching their life collapse in real time. Samuel, I'm begging you. Is there any way to undo this? Any way to fix what I've done? I thought about Margaret, about the 6 months of chemotherapy, about the ring I'd crafted with love, while my hands shook from medication. Patricia, some things can't be fixed. Some words can't be taken back. Some damage is permanent. I walked to the window and looked out at the December snow. You wanted me to face reality? Here's yours. You're about to learn what life costs without someone else paying for it. 3 months later, the final results were in. I'm sitting in Dr. Thompson's office at Swedish Medical Center, looking at test results I never thought I'd see. The words complete remission are highlighted in yellow on the lab report. Samuel, your lymphoma is completely undetectable. The treatment worked better than we hoped. Turns out focusing on not dying was excellent advice. Just not the way Patricia intended it. My phone buzzes with a text from James Morrison at the American Cancer Society. Your donation helped fund Dr. Chen's breakthrough protocol. The treatment that saved your life is now saving others. 14 patients in remission so far. 14 lives. That's what Patricia's education money became. 14 people who get to see their families again. Meanwhile, Patricia's life took a different trajectory. She dropped out of medical school in February. The financial pressure was too much. Even with the maximum student loans, she couldn't cover living expenses on top of her reinstated tuition debt. Last I heard, she was working at a medical supply company in Portland, still living with her mother. The divorce papers came through last month. David moved back home with me temporarily. He's been different since Christmas, quieter, more thoughtful. We've been working on the house together, fixing that roof Patricia mentioned, upgrading the heating system. Dad, he said last week while we were replacing gutters, I owe you an apology. For what? For not seeing who she really was, for letting her treat you that way for so long. I handed him another screw. Son, sometimes people show you their true character when they think it doesn't matter. Patricia thought I was powerless, so she felt safe being cruel. But you weren't powerless. No, I wasn't. The ring sits on the mantel now, next to Margaret's picture. Sometimes I catch David looking at it, turning it over in his hands. You know what's funny? He said yesterday. Patricia was right about one thing. This is museum-quality work. I had it appraised again. $4,200. The irony still makes me smile. Sarah's Facebook post went viral beyond anything we imagined. It's been shared over 50,000 times. Someone made it into a TikTok that got 2 million views. The story appeared in advice columns, psychology, blogs, and relationship forums. I've gotten letters from strangers, cancer patients mostly, but also people who've dealt with family cruelty. They understand what happened that Christmas morning. One letter particularly moved me. From a woman named Ellen in Ohio. Mr. Miller, I'm a nursing student whose mother-in-law has been paying my tuition. After reading your story, I drove to her house with flowers and a handwritten thank you note. We cried together. Your story reminded me that generosity deserves gratitude, not entitlement. That's when I knew Patricia's cruelty had been transformed into something useful. Her public humiliation became a cautionary tale that actually helped people appreciate their benefactors. The house feels different now, lighter. We have family dinners again. Martha comes over every Sunday. Jake and Sarah visit regularly. Even some of Margaret's old friends have started stopping by. No one mentions Patricia anymore. She's become a story we tell about recognizing true character, about consequences matching actions, about the difference between earned and given. I've started taking jewelry making classes at the community college. Teaching, actually. Turns out there's demand for someone who can show proper technique to people with hand tremors, other cancer patients, folks with Parkinson's, elderly students whose grip isn't what it used to be. My first class had 12 students. Word spread about the guy from the viral story who makes jewelry despite shaky hands. Now I have a waiting list. Last month, one of my students, a grandmother named Rose who's fighting breast cancer, finished her first project, a simple silver bracelet for her daughter. Professor Miller, she said, holding it up with pride, do you think this looks amateur? I examined her work. Clean solder joints, smooth finish, perfect proportions. Rose, that's the work of someone who put love into every hammer strike. That's not amateur anything. She cried right there in the workshop. That's what Patricia never understood. The value isn't in the perfection of the technique. It's in the intention behind the work, the love that goes into every detail, the hope that your creation will outlast your time on earth. My ring, the one Patricia called infected garbage, now represents something different. It's become a symbol of dignified boundaries, of consequences fairly applied, of love that doesn't enable cruelty. David's dating someone new now. Emily, a nurse from the oncology ward where I received treatment. She understands the value of caregiving, of patience with people who are suffering. When I showed her the ring, she held it carefully and asked about each birthstone's meaning. "This is incredible craftsmanship, Mr. Miller. The person who receives this will treasure it forever." That's the difference between someone who appreciates gifts and someone who expects them. Margaret's picture still watches over everything from the mantel. Sometimes I talk to her about what happened, about Patricia, about David, about the strange way life delivers justice. I think she'd be proud of how I handled it, not with anger or revenge, but with natural consequences. Patricia wanted independence from the dying old man's charity. I gave her exactly what she asked for.